Yo, what's happening, people? Back again for another stream. Don't forget to smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel at Gav Goes In. Apologies for the delay. Had a bit of trouble with the YouTube, but up and running now. So, bit of a change from my usual analysis of Man United and my recent Euro 2024 look at the potential squads and the lineups of the national teams. I'm going to talk a bit about myself and my background in football, and just tell you the experiences that I've had from growing up. Obviously, people that know me know that I'm football mad. You know, my whole life has been revolved around football from a young age. Everything I do every day, whether it be watching football, playing football, you know, even playing things like Football Manager, you know, listening to football podcasts. Yeah, that's something that I've been doing 30 plus years, you know, and yeah, just I fell in love with the game from a very young age, and for me that's never going to stop. You know, I watch football literally like every day. Whether it be different leagues, you know, whether it be listening to football talk. I'm a massive student of the game, you know, and my knowledge of football, I believe, is second to none. And yeah, anyone, as I say, that knows me will know, you know, that I'm someone that is just football mad, and any kind of conversations you want to have about football, I can more or less have the answer for it. As it's my field. So I'm going to talk about from young, how I started, and then where it got to, and what I'm currently doing now. So I started off playing football for my local team, which is a team called Redbridge United, based in where I used to live in the Redbridge area. Yeah, I think I started playing for them when I was, I want to say, around 6 or 7, I would say. Bearing in mind the area that I was living in as well, I was only black child in that team, and I think what happens with these kind of things is that sorry, big up XD. So he says, how potent is that left foot really, Gav? To be honest with you, it's probably one of the best left foots in the business, I would say. You know, people that know me would agree with that as well. Yeah, I mean, yeah, as you said, I'm left-footed. Can use my right foot very well as well. But yeah, my left foot is, I would say, is very special, as what has been shown down the years. So yeah, so I played for Redbridge United when I was younger, and as I said, yeah, I was the only black child in the team, and I think what happens is that you get labelled with, oh, he's going to be very quick. You know, a lot of players playing today, black players playing today, have that tag of the you know, very strong, very quick. And even though I was quick, I always relied on my actual footballing ability. You know, I used to practice my football every single day near where I used to live on the estate. And yeah, right foot, left foot, you know, every day I was practicing my technique, you know, and you could see, like, you know, big up my dad as well, massive factor in how my football career went. Yeah, he used to help me out a lot, you know, and every day without fail after school, you know, I'd be working on my craft, trying to get myself better. You know, physically, I wasn't developed at a young age, but I was still trying to do little things at home, whether it be push-ups, to try and get myself physically fit. You know, going for runs as you do, and then, as I say, the practicing from there. So, playing for Redbridge, we were regarded as the best team in Essex for our age group. A lot of the boys that played there all played for pro clubs at the time. So you had the goalkeeper, was at Wimbledon, I believe. The right back was at Leyton Orient. Left back was at West Ham. The two centre backs, one was at Ipswich and the other one was at Southend. And then into midfield, the two centre midfielders, one was at Chelsea, the other one was at Southend. Left winger was at West Ham. Right winger was at Wimbledon. And then myself, who was the striker, with another guy. I was at Chelsea at the time, and the other guy was at West Ham. Playing for Redbridge for me was enjoyable. You know, any tournaments we went to, whether it be five-a-sides, we would dominate. Where we had two teams that will make the final or the semi-finals, it was always there dominating, one league after league. Even we went to a tournament in Manchester and played against Bobby Charlton's School of Excellence, and we actually beat them in a friendly over there. So yeah, like my grounding in terms of football come from playing for them. You know, I started off playing as a left winger. Reason being is because left footers back in the era that I was playing was very rare, and obviously, as I said before, my pace was kind of looked at as a key asset from the wide positions until I transitioned to playing as a striker. And then it was when playing for a striker, I was actually scouted for Chelsea, who I ended up playing for Chelsea for, I believe it was 6 years. Had an offer to go and play for Arsenal as well. I played for my district team as well. And I remember one of the games we played, it was a quarterfinal of the Cup. Being at Chelsea at the time, Arsenal scout come over to me and said, you know, we want you to come over for a trial. And I said to him, you know, I'm currently playing for Chelsea at the moment, so he's unable to do that, you know. But yeah, I mean, playing district and Sunday league was an eye-opener. And then ended up playing for Chelsea as a schoolboy. And the experiences I've had at Chelsea, which I'm going to run through now. What I would implore people to take note of as well is that playing for professional clubs is, for me, is a massive, in the academy, is a massive achievement for myself. And I think anyone that knows me will know that they couldn't believe that I didn't become a professional footballer. A lot of factors go into these things, especially the era that I was coming through. You know, obviously I was at Chelsea when Chelsea had no money to spend. So really and truly, you would have had to have been either physically developed at a young age or really, really special, which there was no one really of my age group that was going to be put into, you know, the high age groups, pushing for the reserve team or first team at the time, you know. And for me, I could see from my age group, you know, technically I was good enough. Physically, I wasn't really developed, you know. And but I think what worked against me, especially, which I'm going to go on to the other teams as well, is relatability. I think this is a massive thing in football. I believe it's probably changed a bit now, but when I mean relatability is at these clubs, you're more or less dealing with coaches who are, you know, British coaches that see football in a certain way. And the style of player that I was, even from a young age, I was very flamboyant as a player. You know, even though I had pace wasn't my main attribute. You know, I was a footballer first, and then I looked at the pace as a bonus. But in terms of relatability, I never really had a coach that kind of, you know, he kind of looked at me and thought, you know, we're going to give him a chance at that time. There was always other players that were kind of looked at more. And in terms of, say, to relatability, I'm talking about, I never really had any black coaches that would, you know, put their arm around me and give me the kind of confidence that, you know, you're one for the future as such. It was always, you know, relying on my ability, which I knew I had, and trying to forge a career like that. You know, my late father, bless up as well. He was someone, you know, that he used to come over, not say too much, and just rely on myself. You know, turn up every day, train every day, and proving my ability to the coaches. And as many people that have been in the academy system, that's not enough. It's nowhere near enough. You know, I've seen things where you've got certain parents of certain players in the academy, you know, and at the time you don't actually pay attention to it, but they were always in the air of the manager, or the coach, and then you'll find that these are the same guys that are getting further, you know, and I think these kind of things you don't really realize at a young age, but as you get older and you get more experience, you realize these certain patterns were happening. I'll give you a short story. Players in my age group at Chelsea, there was a manager at the time, and I believe right now he's actually the academy director, who's a manager, is a guy called Neil Bath. And I always noticed that Neil Bath was very friendly with a certain group of players in our age group, and it turns out that them same players are now on the backroom staff of Chelsea. So yeah, it's amazing really how these kind of things work out. But when you're involved in the football, and you're trying to, you know, better yourself, and you're trying to make a career, you tend to kind of not look at these things. But these things are a massive factor in football now, I believe. You know, going back to the experiences I've had at Chelsea, I've played at Stamford Bridge. I mean, these are kind of things that I can be proud of. I played at Stamford Bridge, double figures. So at the end of the season, you play on a couple of the professional grounds. And obviously we always played at Stamford Bridge come the end of the season, a couple of times a year. So I've played there about 10 times. I've played at Amsterdam Arena. I've played at Norwich City's Carrow Road, Portman Road of Ipswich, the Valley at Charlton, Upton Park, Stade Velodrome in France for Marseille. Yeah, I've played at so many different stadiums. I've lost count, and that's something that I can be proud of. You know, I've had great experiences in football. I think a notable experience that I had playing with Chelsea was when we went to an area called Stoke, to a university, Kiel University, I believe. And what it was is that all the best teams in the country would go and play in a tournament. So I think we stayed there for about a week. And obviously, yeah, you just be in a group and you play against certain teams. So I remember you had the likes of, obviously, when I was at Chelsea, we were there, West Ham, Tottenham, Everton, Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal. Yeah, all the top teams in the country would go and play this tournament. And I remember when we had Everton in our group. And for me, obviously never played Everton before, but there was always, when we was around our hotel room, because obviously all the players of Derby County were there as well, actually. All the players would stay like in a hotel room, so you'd be staying with other teams, you know, and just mingling with them, etc. And I used to always hear people talking about Rooney, like mentioning his name, Wayne. They was to call him, oh, he's different level, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. Me at the time, I never knew who this person was. And then it's not until we played Everton, and bearing in mind, I think he was a year older than me as well. We played Everton in a group game, and I remember Everton beating us 4-2. And there was a player playing for them, and I used to think, oh, this guy, you know, he's unplayable at the time. Funny enough, turns out to be Wayne Rooney. And let me tell you now, like physically, he was ridiculous. Technically, he was on another level, even to the point where I actually went to a 50-50 barge with him. And bearing in mind, I was a lot slimmer at the time as well. I went flying. You know, it was funny because he was just that strong and there's nothing you could do. but I think technically he was on another level in comparison to the players. And obviously his career speaks for itself, you know. But for me, that was an eye-opener as to the kind of players you're up against, you know, for that age group. But yeah, I can honestly say that I've had great experiences. Obviously at Chelsea, I decided to leave Chelsea as well. I think the way that I was treated over there led to me to believe that I wasn't going to be offered a scholarship there. And obviously the travelling, so to travel down to Cobham in Surrey a lot of the times is a big commitment. And I thought, you know, I want to try my hand somewhere else, somewhere which is a bit closer. And I decided to leave Chelsea after 6 years. And as I said, the experiences I've had at Chelsea, in terms of playing against certain players, and playing on professional grounds, you know, even going to Stamford Bridge at times when I was getting treatment done. Being a young player, you get to see how the professionals, how they kind of live. You know, I remember there used to be a player called Albert Ferrer, ex-Spanish right back, Chelsea right back. I remember when I had problems, I had a mad injury, so I had a little growth spurt going on, which meant I had injuries to my funny enough, actually, I had from the physios, I was told I had a bit of a bent pelvis, and that caused a lot of ankle injuries, groin issues as well. And then as part of being at Chelsea, they then sent me to Stamford Bridge to get treatment done by the first team physio. And I remember being in the treatment room with Albert Ferrer at the time. And then you get to experience, you know, how the professionals live really and how they are treated. And that was a big eye opener for me. I even was a ball boy as well at Chelsea. So part of playing there, you get to do, but you get to become a ball boy there as well. So I was ball boy at Chelsea for about 5 or 6 games since I was there. So yeah, I've had massive experiences with Chelsea. You know, I'm grateful really to first of all being signed up and, you know, continuing. I would say how I was kind of treated over there wasn't great, and this is something that people need to be mindful of. If you haven't been in the academy scene, that, you know, there's the aftercare in terms of being looked after is not really there how it should be. Now it could be changing. I'm not too sure. But yeah, so I took the chance to leave Chelsea as there was interest from Tottenham. And I was at Tottenham for, I think it was 2 seasons. I was at Tottenham. And yeah, I mean, I was signed by Tottenham within the first training session as a schoolboy up until obviously the scholarship stage. And bearing in mind when I first got there, obviously people know Jamie O'Hara. That was my age group there. I think he was just signed by Arsenal for £1 million at the time, which was a lot of money. And obviously he was looked at as someone that obviously, as you know, he went on to play for the first team, but he was someone that was guaranteed. And when I was there, I looked at myself in comparison to him, and I just think physically he was more developed than me. But in terms of ability, I wouldn't say he had more ability than me. I think he was just more physically developed. And the key word is relatability. And I've mentioned this a few times, because relatability for me is a massive factor in football. You know, it's important that you have coaches from different countries in the academy system, because they're going to see something different to what your average British coach sees. And for my whole career being in an academy, I've just had strictly British coaches who, you know, blood, guts and thunder kind of passion merchant coaches. And the technical side of it is failing. And that's what I experienced, you know, which for me, which is disappointing. But yeah, it's something that, as I said, if you look at the Premiership now, the influx of foreign managers, they're all foreign coaches, a lot of them as well. So I think in that sense, I kind of like just missed the boat, especially with Chelsea, because obviously I wasn't there when I wasn't there in the Abramovich era. You know, I was there just before that, and in terms of the relatability with a lot of these coaches, it was never there for me really, and I believe that's what worked against me wholeheartedly as well. But yeah, playing for Tottenham, I could honestly say in my age group, you know, I was one of the top players in my age group, but I joined at a time where, you know, breaking that mold of players that are favoured by the management was gonna prove difficult. Even though I wholeheartedly believed that I was better than what they had, and to this day, nothing changes my mind. Just like at Chelsea as well. But Tottenham for me was a massive disappointment, because I immediately, you know, and this is a thing which I kind of look back now and I think, you know, maybe a bit of immaturity at the time, but these things do happen. Now, when I went to Tottenham, I went there, you know, in my mind as a striker, because I've always played as a striker. But as I mentioned to you before, left footers were a rarity when I was growing up in football, especially in academy level. And obviously, these coaches, again, relatability, they looked at my height and they thought, you know, he's not a 6 foot, so we're not going to really play him up front. Very stereotypical. And bearing in mind that I was left footed as well, I was always going to be pushed out to being like a left midfielder, left winger player. Now, as I mentioned before, my late father, he used to come over, didn't used to say too much, you know, used to just watch me train and let my feet do the talking, in a sense. Now, I think even my father, like, he even noticed, you know, that I should be playing as a striker, but they're trying to force me. The coaches at Tottenham are trying to force me as a left midfield player. And even though back then, you know, I should have thought to myself, you know, just either play to the best of your ability, give it all you got, you know. But my mindset back then was slightly a bit different. There was more I could have give. I agree, but I think with me, it was more of a case of just being given that chance, which I feel I deserved, you know, in terms of commitment, turning up every day, and just giving my best to becoming a professional or young professional. And I was not being given a chance, and that's partly the reason why as well. I was, you could say, sulking, but I was, I was trying to, just get my point across, maybe in a wrong way to the coaches. Who knows? But my late father basically said to the coaches, a certain manager, ex-player for Tottenham, he was our coach, a guy called Dave Kerslake. Not sure where he is now, but he was the coach at the time at Tottenham. I remember my dad saying to him, you know, what's Gav's chances of playing as a striker? And then the first thing that he said to my father was, we've got 2 strikers of England recognition, meaning that the club are putting forward these 2 players for England trials at that age group. So basically, more or less saying that I won't be given a chance. And for me, that was hard to take, because I was better than both of them. Wholeheartedly, I know that. Technically, I was better than them. But I think I don't think the reason why these players were favoured over me is going back to relatability in terms of how these coaches see the game back then. These British coaches, you know, they looked at them 2 as they run harder than myself. That's what it was, because my game wasn't about, you know, running. It was more about, you know, the technical side of the game. You know, getting on the ball, you know, making things happen, whether it be playing a through ball, you know what I mean, whether it be dribbling. Like, my game was more suited to a European-based style, and them two players were just energetic runners, you know. And even though for me that was a disappointment, I still played. And in terms of the treatment I received at Tottenham, it was shocking. And this is coming from a coaches at the time signing me within the first training session, and but the treatment there was poor. So what they used to do, the players that were favoured at the club would play for the older age group, and the players that were not favoured, like myself, would obviously train with the age group below. And obviously that's letting you know that you're not really favoured, and obviously it's all about trying to push you out, really. So I had one or two choices. I could either, you know, continue to be unhappy and sulk, or I could really like change it around and show what I've got, which is what I did. So even from that position of left midfield, you know, one of the seasons I thought, you know what, I'm going to just play there, no fuss. And it turns out that from that position, I actually outscored both of the strikers who were actually playing for the older age group and our age group. So I made it a point of, because I wanted to show to myself that I've got what it takes to, you know, to focus on something and prove myself wrong. Well, not prove myself wrong, but prove myself right, should I say. So what I did, every game, you know, I would write down the games I'm playing in from the wing, and then these two players that we're playing. And every time I would score, I would just write it down at home. And the other guys, I would make a note in what games they were playing and scoring. And I outscored both of them from left midfield, you know, which for myself was important, because I needed to prove something to myself. And yeah, so and these two players actually played for the older age group as well, so they were getting double football than myself. And the way that I was treated was trained with the age group below, and even times as well playing for the normal age group, my age group, I was taken off as well, to not getting full football. So how I kind of got myself to play for the older age group, because if you're playing for the older age group, you're more or less going to be given your scholarship in a sense. That's how it worked back then. And obviously, as you know, if you're giving your scholarship, which is a key thing, you're on your way to becoming a young professional in a sense, because whether you make it at the pro clubs that you're at, you're going to be in the football scene in a sense. So it's either you play for a lower league team, but you're still a young professional, or you're a professional, or you play for the team that you're coming through. So that's why that was a key step for me. So I remember this, and this is where I got my opportunity to play for the older age group. And this was hard work, you know, what I did. So back then in school, you had a work experience. Everyone should know about the work experience. So I had work experience, and I managed to get my 2 weeks work experience at Tottenham. So what it was practicing being like a young scholar. So practicing being like an under 17 player at a time for 2 weeks. And I basically forced my way into their thinking. So I remember I trained every day for 2 weeks. I was coming in on time, you know, training, giving the best account of myself. And bearing in mind, they probably saw me as someone that played on the wing. And it turns out that for them, they saw me as a striker in the end. So what happened is that I was coming in, you know, and I was practicing being a scholar with the older age group. You know, I was holding my own. Obviously, in training, we played against the under 19s at the time at Tottenham. And obviously, bearing in mind, I was a 15-year-old playing for the under 17 team against the under 19s. we had a training game, and in the training game we happened to beat the under-19s 2-1, and I scored a goal and had a hand in the other one as well. And I knew to myself I played well. And then, bearing in mind you're playing against the older age group and you're an under 16 player, yeah, it's like it's a big thing, because you know, the way that I was treated there would lead you to believe that I shouldn't have the right really to be doing that. So I remember after the game, the under 19s manager at the time was a guy called Pat Holland. Obviously, if you're a Tottenham fan, you'll probably hear these names, and you probably know these names. So Pat Holland actually spoke to the under 17 manager at a time, which is a guy, again, if you're a fan of Tottenham, you probably know these names. A guy called Jimmy Neighbour, who's the under 17 manager. And I remember Pat Holland saying to Jimmy Neighbour, overheard him saying to him, "Oh, who's that player?" kind of thing. And he goes, "Oh, that's Gavin. He's from the under 16s." And he goes, "Oh, you know, give him a chance in your team. You know, he's played well." And I overheard that conversation, and to me, that was satisfying, because I was never given that chance, whether it be at Chelsea or at Tottenham, that a manager's actually saying, you know, to give him a chance. And that's what I asked. So then I ended up, as I say, training with the under 17s. And then we played against West Ham. And they said to me, "Look, we're going to start you in this game," you know. And I started against the under 17s against West Ham, team that contained, obviously, people that you'll know, Mark Noble. That's my age group. He was my age group there. And so, yeah, I played for the under 17 team at against West Ham for Tottenham. You know, played the first half. And I remember some of the players from my age group, actually. Well, before I get to that, actually. So before I got into the change rooms, actually, I got to the game. So our games was on a Saturday. So I remember getting there early. And when I come out the changing rooms, I know obviously some of you Tottenham fans will probably know a player called Robbie Keane. So Robbie Keane was at Tottenham at the time, obviously in the first team. And I remember Robbie Keane coming over to me, and we had like a little conversation. He said to me, obviously Irish guy, his strong accent. He said to me, "Oh, what's your name?" Said to him, told him what name was. I said, "I'm playing for the under 17s today." And he said, "Oh, good luck," you know. And then we was keeping the ball up between each other. And for me, that kind of gave me the confidence to say, "Bloody hell, man, that's Robbie Keane. Like, he's a first team player." And that's something you aspire to be, you know, trying to push yourself forward. And then obviously the game come, and then when I come into the changing rooms, some of the players from my age group that were favoured, playing for the older age group, I could see that they were surprised to see me in there. But obviously they didn't know that the work that I was putting in for the 2 weeks when I was on my work experience to get myself there. Turns out I started the game, you know, played well. Well, to be fair, I played well when I got the ball, you know. Wasn't a great game, but it was my first game for them, which I think I held my own. Anyway, I come off at half time. We ended up losing the game. I think it was 2-0. And after the work experience, I never really got given a chance again after that. And why that happened, I don't know. But yeah, it was something that was disappointment to me. But I showed to myself that I could put the work in and be given a chance in the first place. And then when it come to the actual, obviously the scholarship stage, obviously people that do know me closely, I've probably told this story to them before, but I'm not going to go into it because there's no point really. You know, if you really want to know, then you can obviously ask me, whether it be privately or or whatever. But when it comes to scholarship stages, obviously I never got offered a scholarship at Tottenham. And at the time, when you get released from the pro club at the scholarship stage, you there's teams that obviously will come in for you. Now, at the time, a person that was looking after my affairs at the time, I would say, which I'm not really going to go into, told me that Burnley had come in for me, you know, and this is when Burnley were in the Championship. So Burnley had offered me a 1-year scholarship and a 1-year pro contract. And for me, being someone that, you know, was a home person at the time, you know, I didn't want to travel that far and stay in digs with another family, because I've previously done that before and I didn't really enjoy it too much, because, as I say, you like your own surroundings. But Burnley did come in for me at the time. 1-year pro, 1 year YT, 1-year pro at the end of it. And a big regret for me is that I actually turned it down based on the reasons I just gave. And basically, the person looking after my affairs at the time said to me that there's other clubs that I can go to on trial. Now, the clubs that he took me to on trial, I look back now and I think, you know what, made no sense really, because as I say, technically I was good enough, but physically I wasn't developed, you know. And a lot of these clubs were lower level clubs, likes of Southend, Cambridge United, Rushden and Diamonds at the time, League One, League Two teams that don't have the money. And obviously these kind of teams will be looking to fast track players in at an early age, which I wasn't ready for, clearly. And yeah, it didn't work out, which was to be expected. But at the time when I'm there, you know, I don't really realize it, but it was never going to work out. And even the aftercare as well from these from Tottenham, you know, and the reason this should resonate with a lot of people is because if you've never been involved in the academy set up from a young age, and you know, and then you get released, it's a massive thing, because my life was football and all I knew was football, even to the point where, you know, education would suffer because I never had a real connection with education because my life was football. And it's probably changed a bit now. I'm not too sure at professional clubs, but the aftercare in terms of, you know, them making sure that you're looked after for when you do get released. Because bearing in mind, I wasn't like I was there for a month, you know, I was there for a couple of years, you know. But the reality is these clubs don't give a shit. Let's be honest. They don't give a toss, these clubs. And I was never looked after in that sense, you know. And the reason this will resonate is because I remember reading something. Obviously, Mason, I think he was good friends with Mason Greenwood, player at Man City, actually committed suicide when he got released from Man City. And I can fully understand how players come to these decisions, because if you're someone that's always been in the football setup and then you don't make the grade, you're kind of lost to the world, because you're thinking, what are you going to do now, you know? And I think having a strong mentality, you know, and having things like a platform like a YouTube, you know, to fall back onto and tell your story, I think these are the kind of things that are key, you know. And I could have fallen by the wayside in terms of this player, you know, committing suicide, because I can fully understand as to how you get to that kind of stage, because, you know, getting released from a pro club where you've given your all to, and you've had no kind of aftercare after that, then yeah, it's easy to kind of fall like that. But I would urge anyone that's in the academy right now, you know, and these things do happen to you, you know, to kind of stay strong and, you know, make it be like there is other avenues you can go down to either telling your story or, you know, yeah, or kind of making something of your life. And At first, I struggled to do that because my life was a bit wayward after that in terms of being lost to football. I ended up getting released from Tottenham. I went to Grays Athletic for a bit, but I found myself just going from different clubs, lower level clubs, and not really settling because I was lost to the game, as I said, even from at a young age. And so that's what I would say. It's tough to take, very tough to take, because it's a massive void for me, football, in my life. And I can probably say now I've probably come to terms with it more as I get older, because I'm more understanding as to why I was failed. I wasn't failed because of my own doing. I was failed by the system in football, especially era that I was coming through. As I say now, there is more opportunity, I believe, for players coming through now. And I would say it's never been more easier for players now to make it as a professional, because obviously the teams have to fill up their squad quota with a certain amount of English players, and truly the level has gone down in comparison to players of the past as well, and so I mean, I can look back, my experiences and my background in football. I can look back at it with pride, knowing what I've done. Even as well, mentioning Tottenham, we went to a tournament in Holland. Was it Holland or Belgium? I think it might have been. I think it was Belgium, actually. Went to a tournament in Belgium, and obviously at the time we had Paris Saint-Germain in our group, we had Marseille in our group, and we had a local team called Excelsior Mouscron, I think they were called, in our group as well. And I remember playing up against a player. He was unbelievable, and it wasn't that he was physically developed or anything like that. His footballing brain, his ability was on another level, and there happened to be Sam Nasri, another player, another top player, who actually won player of the tournament as well. Even though Marseille got beat I think they got beat in the semi-finals. But yeah, so I've had good experience against some top players that have actually made it to the professional scene, So yeah, man, it's just been a massive eye opener for me in terms of my experiences, what I've had. Just going to go on to the chat quickly just now. So there's a message from Agnes 14ish. You are right, mate. Not enough representation for black players in the game. 100%. What I would say, Agnes 14ish, the era that I was playing in was massively at a disadvantage for black players back then. As I said, playing for Chelsea and both Tottenham, there wasn't any black coaches that I can remember, and all the coaches that I've had, whether it be managers or regular coaches, have all been British white males. That's a fact. I think now, because of the influx of foreign managers, you will see more foreign coaches, and you will see probably a bit more representation from the black community as well, as coaches in the game now, and that's why I'm very happy for someone like Vincent Kompany, who's flying the flag for black managers. For me, fully deserves his appointment. Some people will say, he got relegated with Burnley, but the fact that Pep has co-signed Kompany to get the Bayern Munich job speaks volumes for how well Kompany is thought of in the game as a manager. And so yeah, I would say now it's probably improved, but definitely back when I was there, yeah, it wasn't there at all. I think if you was a black player back when I was playing, I think a lot of the black players that kind of made it would have had a bit more of a support system around them in terms of an agent, which I never had. Yeah, someone like Jermaine Defoe comes to mind. So yeah, he would have had more of a support system there. But yeah, definitely, I think it's got better. I'm assuming it's got better. You know, the media side of it is a different story, but which, you know, I can go into all day. But yeah, so I just got another message from a Daniela. So how did this affect your mental health? In terms of my mental health, I think when it first happened, I think I was still young, so it didn't really hit me as much as it did in my late to early 30s, I would say. Well, I'll say mid 20s to early 30s. It didn't really hit me. I think when it first happened, because you're in that mode of playing football and you want to just try and, you know, play football, you kind of don't look at the bigger picture in that sense. You just get on with things, you know, and it even got to a point where, you know, I ended up, you know, just going out a lot of the time, drinking, doing things that I never done before, really. You know, I was drinking so much, whether it be trying to block out the pain or whether it be something to do. I don't know, you know, but I would say, yeah, it didn't. I would say it hit me more along the lines of, well, more in a way as I got older, as I say, mid 20s to early 30s, as to what really happened, you know, in terms of being failed. But yeah, no, it in terms of mental health, yeah, it's gonna take its toll one way or another, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think in life you can't let these things get you down. You got to kind of you know, look at the bigger picture and think, well, there is other ways you can kind of maximize what you do. And this is why I found myself creating my own YouTube channel, Gav Goes In, and yeah, trying to forge another avenue within football. You know, obviously people that know me, I can talk about football all day, and I think what better way to do it on a channel, really. So yeah, that's what I would say. But yeah, guys, that's my background in football. So as I say, if you guys got any questions to ask, anything you guys want to know further, you know, feel free to smash that in the chat. Smash that like button, guys, and subscribe to my channel at Gav Goes In. And I'm gonna be back tomorrow. Hopefully, Man United are gonna come to a decision on the manager, the new manager incoming. So we'll touch on that. And yeah, I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Take it easy.